So which did you identify as the main crisis and climax of the play Romeo and Juliet? Who is the play's protagonist? To answer this, we need to determine which character goes through the most traumatic change, and when does this change occur? If you recall, at the beginning of the play, Romeo claims to be in love with Rosalind. In actuality, Romeo is in love with love. He seems to be enamored with the notion of love and is in a passion about the unrequited relationship he finds himself in. But what is love? That is for Romeo to learn. But who will teach him? Naturally, Juliet, one of the most exquisite characters in all tragedy, is the teacher for Romeo. While an argument could be made that Juliet goes through the most traumatic change, since she seems most subservient to her parents' wishes at the beginning of the play, and then sacrifices her life for the love of Romeo at the end, it would seem that Romeo's education on the true nature of love would be the main dramatic action of the play, and that his final act to take his life for the love of Juliet represents the climax of the play. Then who is the antagonist of the play? We find that in the main crisis, the individual action performed by the antagonist that forces the protagonist on a one-way path to the climax of the play. Well, in the traditional sense, the antagonist is the villain of the play. And that certainly seems to be true for the play Romeo and Juliet as well. Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, was made to be the antagonist. But where is the main crisis? Most point to Tybalt's killing of Romeo's friend, Mercutio, as the main crisis of the play. Before this event, Romeo was playing the pacifist, attempting to make friends with Tybalt. But once Tybalt slays Mercutio, Romeo is forced to take immediate revenge. This individual action forces Romeo to the events that lead to the climax of the play. Now, the notion that Tybalt is the antagonist of Romeo and Juliet may square with our predisposition that the villain is typically the antagonist of the play, and Tybalt certainly is antagonistic. But the most antagonistic character in a linear plot may not necessarily be the antagonist of the play. In fact, one could make a very good argument that Tybalt is not the antagonist of Romeo and Juliet. He certainly is if one considers the typical Senecan structure of tragedy. We will be discussing this when we cover Elizabethan theater. However, if we consider the strict linear construction of the plot of Romeo and Juliet, the slaying of Mercutio occurs at the beginning of Act 3, almost in the middle of the play. And while it's certainly a dramatic crisis, one could argue that there are still many options open to Romeo. It has been convincingly argued that the main crisis of Romeo and Juliet occurs toward the end of Act 4, when Juliet takes the potion which creates the illusion of her death. This action, which occurs late in the play, will force Romeo to come to Juliet's grave and take his life. If this is, indeed, the main crisis of the play, then by strict structural analysis, Juliet would be the antagonist of the play. So we see that we need to relinquish our prejudices when we consider the antagonist of a linear plot. The fact that Hallie's dad seems to be the most antagonistic character in Master Harold and the Boys does not necessarily make him the antagonist of the play. And while Tybalt is the obvious villain of Romeo and Juliet, and is clearly the most antagonistic character, he is not necessarily the antagonist of the play. Once again, we identify the antagonist of the play not by their general action or behavior, but specifically in the main crisis of the play. This leads us to the sustained action that occurs following the climax of the play. This is referred to as the resolution. The resolution is often referred to as the unraveling or falling action. The French referred to this as the denouement. The purpose of this action is to demonstrate the adjustment that occurs following the action that makes up the climax of the play. After spitting in Sam's face, Harold must now adjust to the changing conditions of the play. Sam refers to Hallie as Master Harold again and again to emphasize the change that Hallie has just triggered by his action. He must face the truth about the nature of prejudice and how he has fallen victim to it. He must grapple with the nature of his friendship with Sam and Willie, and how he must adjust to his father's return home. The resolution should also underscore the theme or idea manifest in the individual action that was presented in the climax of the play. The nature of prejudice is highlighted when the ugly truth behind the simple story of the kite-flying incident is now revealed. The resolution allows the audience to adjust to the trauma of the climax and try to make sense of it also. So how does the resolution of Romeo and Juliet serve these purposes? Go to the task for this section and respond to the discussion questions there. When we return, we'll take a look at the episodic plot and see how it differs from the traditional linear plot and how it functions in the art and craft of playwriting.